Hello and welcome to SOC Unlocked, Tales from the Cybersecurity Front Line. My name is Mick Leach, your host and guide on this exciting adventure into the SOC universe. In each episode, I chat with various cybersecurity professionals about the latest industry news, emerging threats, practical strategies to keep your organization safe, and more. And this week, I'm really excited to have a dear friend of mine, Stephen Dumolt. Stephen, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Mick.
Absolutely. So, our listeners, just for context sake, Stephen and I worked together for quite some time at a previous company, and then we picked up that show and moved it on the road and went to a different company together. So, Stephen and I have worked together a long time, dear friends, both at work and out of work. And so, this is for me personally, I will just say, a lot of fun and exciting to be able to interview one of my dear friends.
You're the only person who will give me one here, so
Well, I appreciate it. I know when I first started doing this podcast, Steven was like, "Hey, listen, I like the podcast, but I'll never come on it." And I was like, "Oh, come on, man!" And here we are, a year and a half later, with the podcast going along, and Steven kindly consented to coming on and being a part of what we're doing. So I told him, "You have tons to share, and I'm willing. I'm excited to share that with our listeners today."
this is way out of my comfort zone. So I figured I'd try it once.
Fair enough. Fair enough. But here's the thing, right? There are lots of security professionals where they're not the talky smurf in the room like I am. This is might be out of their comfort zone, but I think this is what I love is that there people are willing to put themselves out there and show folks that look, you don't have to be, me or any of the other people that I have on that might be more comfortable in front of a camera or, in front of a podium and have conversations. You have every bit as much to offer, probably more than me. And so it's important that the community sees, the vast array of personality types of people, types of roles that do cybersecurity jobs.
You definitely have the talking skills that I do not, uh, which I think that's why we always worked well together.
Yeah, yeah, because 'cause you're the technical guy, you actually know how to do stuff, and I know how to talk about it, but at any rate, so Stephen, as you well know, probably one of the few that have listened to literally every single episode, you know that we like to talk a little bit about the guest and introduce yourself, then kinda dive into things. So, can you tell us about your current role, and how it connects to security
Sure.
operations?
So currently, I am a security engineer at Viva. Our team is kind of all over the place. So we do IR work, we do traditional SOC work, we do project work. We also manage our own platforms. So the SIM, EDR, that falls under our management as well. We get to do a little bit of everything. Um, and then, yeah. So, fun.
Very cool.
Yeah.
So I think on the podcast last season, I had someone from Viva, Michael Vetri. How do you know Michael and how do you
Yeah.
know
So
him?
he's my director. And I offered him up for sacrifice. Tried to give you to come on last season. Yeah. So I work for Michael as my director. There's no management manager in between. So I report directly to Michael.
All right, very good. Well, that was one of the best episodes we've done last season. So thank you for that. I appreciate it, and I'm glad to talk to you as well. So, what's one recent shift or challenge that your security operations organization has seen in the last couple of years?
So I think we have seen an uptick in just raw incidents that we handle. Um, Part of it is because the attacks are getting faster, um, phishing attempts are getting better, and our infrastructure is growing by leaps and bounds, both technology wise and just raw system wise, um, which throws everything in whack because there's more logs to ingest, more logs to analyze, different types of logs to review, and also different types of systems we have to kind of spin ourselves up when we're reviewing the logs. So just
Okay.
your
So that
number,
makes
man.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. So I want to unpack that, but before I dive deeper into that, because I suspect I know how you're kind of trying to mitigate some of that in terms of volumes is through automation. I do want to double click into that, but not yet. First, AI is all the rage right now. I just got back from Black Hat last week, and literally every single vendor on the expo floor was saying, "We have AI, we do AI, bad actors are using AI." I mean, it's literally everywhere. So in terms of like hype versus reality of AI, what is one of the biggest misconceptions that you hear about AI in cybersecurity specifically?
I think the biggest issue I see is that people state that AI is going to kind of kill the lower ranks of, stock analysts. And from just me playing around with AI, I don't think that we're anywhere close to that yet. I think AI, from a SOC perspective, can help us be better at our jobs and help us understand things that we've not seen before. Um, but I don't think it's 100% or not even 70% perfect. I mean, I've been playing around with it on my personal lab, and it gets things wrong that it will like back itself into a corner, and then you'll keep trying to get it to. So last night I was being a little lazy, and I asked it to write a script for my virtualization server that will take a cloud init template, install software, and configure it to use LDAP authentication. And it kind of backed itself into a corner where the authentication wouldn't work. So then I'd say, hey, this is the error I'm getting. And they'd rewrite parts of the script, and that still didn't work because then it caused another problem. And it kept going in circles and circles. So I don't think AI is 100% perfect. And plus, if we did get to that point, if you get rid of your analyst ranks, you're kind of shooting yourself in the foot because you kind of need your senior people that you want later to kind of be at that lower level so they kind of see and kind of build their skills up. I don't think AI will ever truly replace the SOC analyst, and I think that's something that people need to really think about. Is it even I think it's a great tool. And especially, as you said, every tool now has an AI component in it. Um, so I think you have to figure out which AI is going to be beneficial. Because AI and EDR is great, but that's all it's going to be able to help you with. So does it make sense to spend time leveraging the EDR in your for AI and EDR, or does it make more sense to leverage AI in like your SIM or something like that, where all of your logs get collected and it can kind of look across the board? So I think it depends on kind of your technology stack and what you plan to get out of.
Yeah, I agree. We did, and I don't think we've even talked about this offline, but here at Abnormal, we did a study not long ago. Had some friends at Umdaya do is like a research company perform a research study that we sponsored, and some of the results coming back where they interviewed hundreds and hundreds of security leaders were very similar, responses to what you're sharing here, which is that, AI is a tool. It's at the risk of an oversimplification. It's like adding it's like a calculator. With kids leveraging calculators, I remember when we were in school, they were like, "Oh, at first they said, you can't use a
Yep.
calculator because then you don't learn the
Right.
concepts." No, the calculators made the simple stuff easier, but you still had to have the logic and the understanding later to perform far more complex, calculations. And I think AI is that way. I think it's a tool like any other. It's going to make some aspects of our lives easier, but I think human in the loop is always going to be an issue, right? It's important. I think we do continue to this day to struggle with in terms of transparency and explainability in AI, and I think we need better from vendors, from the vendor space in that area. So, it's for those reasons and many more. I don't see AI as like taking over everything. Will it automate certain aspects so that your junior, as to your point, your junior SOC analysts can focus on more impactful work? Absolutely. I do believe that. Will it replace them entirely? No, I don't think so.
No, I agree. I think, it will allow us to focus what used to be just looking at alerts and triaging to allow them to have a little more engagement, be engaged a little more and work on things that are a little higher than that. Um, so that they can eventually reach that, tier two, or tier three, whatever, um, whatever their next role is that they want.
Yeah. Okay, so let me shift gears then, right? So we talked about what misconceptions there are with AI today. Where have you seen AI or ML provide some actual real value in your environment there at Viva?
Um, so I think probably with code when it comes to the coding. So from the soft perspective, we're still trying to work through like all our tools and the AIs that's coming out and reviewing those, getting vendors to explain why should we leverage that, because most of them they're not. It's not like a free add-on, right? For your tools, it's usually a different purchase that you're gonna have to go and I'm gonna have to talk to my director and say, hey, we should be leveraging this technology. But I think when it comes to the coding and reviewing the code, I think those are probably some of the biggest hits that and our company builds software, so I think that's the biggest chance we have with kind of improving our code readability. And then for when I do our automation, uh, you know, I'm now using AI to help annotate my code, a lot of my code, or kind of make it a little more fault tolerant. Um, so I'll write something, I'll test it, it works. Maybe I'll be like, hey, can you expand out this function and also add the correct documentation and stuff like that. And I think that has allowed me to write to kind of complete some of our automation tasks at a much faster rate, because I'm the only one on the team doing automation right now. So, or the majority of the automation for the team falls on me. So we got one guy does stuff for the sim, but
Love it. So I want I want to tease out something there because you talked about it. You're commenting your code. You're actually putting what it is and what it does in there
yeah,
and everything.
yes,
Finally.
yes. So I've learned from the past two companies I worked with, who I wrote an application for, and they kept it up, and then they had still called me, which I don't mind. I don't mind helping anybody out. Um, but yes, now it's full. I've gone the route of full CI/CD type work, documentation, and documents in the code. And I try to use for Python. I try to use Sphinx to actually build out a like an actual documentation booklet that shows how the application works and how to use it. So yeah, I've
All
gotten better,
right.
Mick, from the
I love it.
writing.
I love it.
Lots of code.
For listeners who don't know us, we worked together for a long time, and I had to rib him about this because I used to try. If Stephen, heaven forbid, would go on vacation, I would be trying like crazy to troubleshoot his code, and I could not make heads or tails of it. It's brilliant. It's great. But back then he wouldn't comment it really well, and I couldn't figure out what was going on. It was a
Yeah.
disaster. So
Yes. Now
I was there was no way I was letting you by with that without ribbing
yeah, I
you
know.
on that.
I know. It was also like the 2 week thing, right? Yeah.
Oh,
You can
yes,
guarantee my
exactly.
code was going to be the SLA was going to be 2 weeks, and it wasn't going to have any documentation in it. But it always ran.
Yeah, reminded me.
It always ran. So that was good.
True, true. Reminds me of that movie Money Pit where the contractor would always say, "It'll be done in 2 weeks, 2
Yep.
weeks," because Steven used to tell me that all the time. Um, so Uh, jumping back to our questions though, what is your approach there at Viva to reducing analyst burnout and alert fatigue? This is a major problem in SOCs all over, has been for decades. I think it's only gotten worse with the advent of generative AI as attacks start to leverage that and overwhelm some of our tooling. What are you guys doing over there to sort of combat this?
There are varying degrees of automation. Some things we automate all the way through. Um, Usually those aren't detections, but yeah. And then constantly review changing our playbooks to be more efficient, and updating the sim logic to try to reduce some of those false positives that we see. And Michael and the leads for the what we call the blue team, which is the team I'm on, um, they're really good at looking at the metrics, the false positive rates, and responding in time, and kind of doing 2 week sprints, and trying to make the process a little smoother. So
Gotcha.
yeah, I think that's how. And I think it, for the most part, it's been working. And then we also, you know, we'll set off time where all the engineers will get on a Zoom call for a half hour, and just talk. Not even about work, just kind of talk, just kind of goof off, and that kind of helps blow off some steam. Sometimes we end up talking about work, but most of the time we try not to.
I love that. That throws me back to when we used to Kim Bain, an old manager, well, she's not old, but she was our
Yes.
manager, and, she used to do that. That was a big technique of hers. What else are you guys doing? Because I love that approach. I think there's a lot of value in that, especially for a remote-only culture
Yes.
where people are scattered to the four winds. You don't know where everybody's even located anymore. Um, but keeping folks engaged and connected is really important. What else are you doing to keep your team engaged and motivated?
So, we have an ongoing chat all day long. Actually, we have several of them. We have one that so we got one for like the blue team guys, and we got one for the whole team. So our team under Michael encompasses vulnerability management, cyber intel, and the blue team guys. So we got one chat that covers everybody. And sometimes it's about a lot of chats are about work. Sometimes it's not, right? Sometimes it's like, people are putting memes in there, making jokes, and, teasing Michael. I like to, tease Michael and make like, yeah, I'm meeting with Abnormal today. And he's like, what? Like, yeah, got an interview today. Actually,
Oh, goodness.
I finally told him, no, it's not an interview. I'm just going on Nick's podcast. But I like to make
I
you
love
sweat.
it.
So we do try to have fun at work. But like you said, yeah, our whole team is remote. We've got 2 people in Canada. We've got people spread across the whole United States. So usually, once a year we get together as a team for a week. This last month, um, the team met in Pennsylvania, at one of the offices there, and they had a good time. And then another time every year, our whole security department meets, and usually it's Ohio because that's kind of where most of the members of the security team are. So yeah, so we end up having 2 week on sites. One is just our team, and then one is the whole security team. Um, and we bring members in from our European team and our China team, that will come in for that. And so it's kind of good to kind of, you know, chat with some of the people that you may not talk to that often.
Love it. What a great approach. Okay, I want to pivot a little bit though here. I know being in security operations, you and I have done this for a long time. The threat techniques and tactics and procedures that bad guys are bringing to the table are constantly changing. What new or unexpected threat techniques have caught your eye in 2025 so far this year?
Yeah, so we have seen an uptick in fake jobs. So diva jobs put on LinkedIn, and is like, that's not us. you know, um, and automated calls, like automated phishing calls, have seemed to increase like within the past month. And then, just the phishing emails are getting really good. It's like, I
They are.
don't know if this is bad or if this is, if this is legit. It looks really good. So really having to dig into the information from the header and say, well, I think it's pretty good. I think it's okay. It's just marketing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think they're just getting better, and it's the um, pace that they can come in now with AI and just is amazing.
Yeah. Well, I want to pull on that thread though too, right? So you mentioned AI. How are you seeing adversaries use it and what are you doing to stay ahead of it?
So
It's pervasive everywhere.
we really rely on our users to report some of it, um, because a lot of it still gets through. Um, eh, we rely on them, and then we kind of what can we based on this email, and we've got three of them that look very similar. What kind of logic can we put in, or what kind of what kind of alerting can we give the company so when they see them, they're like, okay, this is bad. Just don't click it.
Gotcha. Gotcha. Now, before you had talked about the volume of attacks coming in, um, and I'd mentioned, that we have an area around automation. This is that space where I want to kind of double click into some of this, just to understand, dig into it a little bit deeper. What's a win that your team has had using SOAR or other automation tools? I know SOAR is near and dear to your heart. You've been a SOAR engineer basically as long as I've known you, which is quite some time. So what are you guys doing there and some wins that you've had in that space?
Yeah, so I guess we'd have to go back to almost 4 years ago when I joined the team. Um, we have grown a lot. So when I came on, there were three members of the security operation team, and they were kind of doing VM work. They were doing the blue team, the SOC, managing. So all the stuff we're doing now, there was three people, and they had a SOAR, and the person who was running the SOAR was kind of given the SOAR. Kind of like the guy who was running the SIM was kind of just given the SIM, and they didn't really, so we've kind of been rebuilding engineering the stack and how it works. Because the SOAR, the only thing that we're using it for was phishing, and taking the stuff from the cloud platform that they use for vulnerabilities. That was it. Um, so everything else was going into, any incidents were being tracked through Jira. Um, and, you know, not a big fan. But so we've kind of redone our stack. We looked at how things were organized and kind of changed a lot of different things. We've also added a lot of team members, in the past 4 years to kind of help break out some of those capabilities, so they have more, they have more people to focus on them.
Mm,
And yeah, so now stuff goes from our SIM to our SOAR, and then it will also get alerts from other platforms. And the SOAR is our central point for investigative notes and uploads and stuff like that. So, yeah. So, and the SOAR is actually doing more work for us now by collecting, or at least being able to, run a command from in the SOAR, and it will query the system for you and pull the information and then add it to your ticket for you, so that the analyst doesn't have to go out and do that kind of work.
okay. Yeah, that's huge. I remember when you and I worked together, that was one of the biggest things we were always trying to do is find ways to automate the collection and enrichment of data for, alerts that were coming in from the SIM, right? Don't just give me an IP address. Tell me who owns it. Tell me where it's registered.
Exactly.
Don't give me a username. Tell me who that is, who their boss is, like give me some details.
Yeah, and I think being able to use the sword to extract those data points and then search across different intel feeds, right, is a huge win, because then I may be able to query one, okay, give me virus total, but with bringing the Intel feeds in and then just having it check against it, it's much faster. It's already there when the analyst logs in. They can say, "Oh, okay, that IP that's bad. It's got an Intel hit. This is likely something that does warrant a further look."
Yeah, I love that. Okay, so now, because automation, you were the lead for our tuning and automation team when we worked together. When I had the SOC, we had tuning and automation on the engineering side of things. That's near and dear to your heart. I hope our listeners are picking up on that. How do you decide though? Because we used to go round and round about this. I remember, how do you decide what is in play? Like, what makes sense to automate and what doesn't? Like, what's safe and effective to automate and what probably still needs to be done manually?
So, so right now, like data collection is almost always a automate scenario, right? The analyst should not have to jump from the SOAR to the EDR to pull logs or whatever. Um, I think where it comes into should I automate comes around, do I let a machine make a decision or do I have a person make a decision? But so I'm not, like I said, I don't put much faith in, barring the whole new AI capability, right? I don't like automate, writing a script that says if this, then good, or if that, it's bad. So I
Mhm.
would rather say, if this, show the analyst this and let them, and then ask them, is this normal or bad? Because, and it depends on the environment. There's a lot of things we see um, that you would think would be bad, but it's actually the way the environment is created that causes that artifact. And after a while, I'm like, okay, yeah, hey, we need to suppress this from this, the sim or whatever. So yeah, I think data collection is always an automate, or a candidate for automation. But when it comes to a decision, that's where I'm like, I don't really like automating this, unless it's very like if is evil flag is true, then you know, but there's you don't get too many of those scenarios.
Yeah, I do wish that the hackers would set the evil flag to true.
Yes,
It sure make the jobs easier, wouldn't it?
yes,
But I do appreciate that. I agree. I think there are times when, you know, we automate the collection of data, but we can't really automate the
yeah,
analysis of that data, at least yet.
right.
Maybe a time comes when we get there, but I agree. I'm still in that boat. Took me a little slower to come around, which is why we used to argue about it occasionally. But I got there in the end, thanks to Steven's persuasive
Yeah,
arguments.
I think with AI though, I think how I see that we could use it is, we automate the collection, we automate the maybe changing the formats, and then we have AI give an analysis, and then we give it to the analyst to say, here's what the AI says, you know, would you have came to the same conclusion, and then maybe based on a use case by use case basis after however many, maybe 100 or whatever. The analyst, every time the analyst says yes, I would have came to that conclusion. Maybe that use case could just be automated, and then there's just a quick review by an analyst and they close the ticket. So I think that's how we may use AI in the future. Um,
I like it. Cool. Okay, so now jumping maybe more into about like modernization of the security operations space. Have you adopted any like cloud native or API first platforms, and what was the result of that? Did things improve?
yeah, so our whole company is cloud based.
Hmm.
We use about every cloud vendor you could think of. So every platform. Um, we've got a few areas that are traditional, have domains and stuff like that. But for the most part, our whole company has always been cloud, so, which is interesting environment to be in when you're coming from a traditional network, because they do not function anything like a, normally they don't. So there's a steep learning curve. So
Yeah, I learned that here too. Obviously Stephen and I have worked at a couple of companies together, so we have similar backgrounds. But coming to Abnormal, again, startup, young, plucky startup, it's all cloud all the time and everything's SaaS and there's no real prem to speak of. There's not a data center somewhere that you could just walk into and start messing with servers or anything. So it was a big shift for me too. Um, at the same time, and I want your opinion on this, once I got over the, like, culture shock that it's different and so very different, for me, it was this realization of, "Oh, man, this is gonna be so much easier to maintain, so much easier to" I don't know if I wanna say easier to protect, but at least more streamlined in terms of what you need to do to protect yourself and your company and all of your assets. For me, that's how it felt. What about you when you got to Viva?
yeah, so I had never worked in a cloud environment, so I didn't know what to expect coming in. Um, I think there are some areas where being cloud makes it easier. So it's easier to actually codify things like with Terraform to spin up devices and security groups and stuff like that. That is not as easy to do on a on-prem. There's not a script that you could say, "Hey, go rack a server for me, format it, install the operating system, and set it up." Whereas with the cloud, you have that, and plus that stuff can go into source code repositories and have more visibility on how to configure and ensure that the configuration is the same, or similar, for each deployment. So I think that's easier. I think you have to have a little more um, visibility of how pieces plug in and how the outside world can leverage those resources, right? With the domain, typically with the domain, you have you know one or two entry points for the network to come in, or traffic to come into your network, and you can tighten those down pretty good. With the cloud, it functions way different. And if you have multiple teams, then they have the chance of opening something up, um, that's not expected. So I think there's some pros and cons to both types of deployments.
Yeah, fair point for sure. Now I want to move into like metrics in the security operations space in particular. This is always a challenge. Is identifying the right KPIs, the right metrics that actually measure the value of the work that you're doing and help you, move the needle on security. What metrics do you rely on or show to show the impact of your SOC there at Viva?
Yeah. So we traditional, MTTRs, MTTs, stuff like that, that, we use more internally. We do tracking like closure codes, right? So, we have drop down for closure reasons. And our SIM, which is our SIM administrator, is our team lead. Um, he's really good at analyzing those and dictating, hey, for this type of incident, we're getting a lot in this closure code. Um, maybe we need to reduce, we need to do some analysis as to why we're getting false positives. So why we're closing in a certain way? Is it that the logs don't have enough information, or we're not getting the correct logs? Um, you know, so I think that's all internal stuff. Um, we generate a report of the AI systems that are being used by our product teams, um, and how many users are going out to which platforms, and then also tying them back to the business unit and the C levels. So we could say for this C level, their teams are using these five AI, or are visiting these five AI platform sites, um, to make sure that we're kind of sticking with the standard our company chose as far as the AI stuff. So, and making sure that somebody's not using one that the company has not reviewed and said, okay, yeah, you can use that AI.
Okay. No, that makes a lot of sense. And I like the approach and the metrics that you're pulling in. I've always struggled personally with, like, how we interpret the data. Maybe we just our tools have improved and our writing of detections have improved. So maybe we're just able to find more and alert on more activity than maybe it's not necessarily happening more. We just see it.
Right. And I think um, that's something that Michael and the leadership team are aware of, right? And they can kind of talk to those that, while yes, we've got a lot more incidents today than we did in 2022, we're also, we've also done this amount of work. Now, we understand that we've got more incidents because we're better at, analyzing the data and getting the data to us to analyze. So yeah, I definitely think that's a story that the security team leadership, is communicates with the company.
I'm glad. I love that. I love that the approach is end to end on that, and they're able to better frame the data to tell the right story. So that's useful. Now we're coming here kind of to the end of our time. So I want to shift gears one last time and just ask about career advice. We have lots of folks probably tuning in that are thinking, "Man, this sounds cool. I love what they're doing. I love the work that Steven's able to do in terms of coding and automation, and that just sounds fun." What advice would you give somebody that is eager to get into this role, but doesn't know where to start? What would you recommend?
Yeah, so I guess there's two different, paths. People that have previous IT experience, and then people that are fresh out of college, right? Two different kind of requirements. Um, because if you look at a lot of the, Reddit or LinkedIn conversations, a lot of them complaining that the job market is horrible. I probably would not be in this job market if I was trying to get a job today, just because I think the biggest thing that you have to rely on is kind of your mark or your connections, right? So getting out there,
Mhm.
meeting people in the environment. For people coming out of college, I would suggest not trying to jump directly into security. Um, you know, it can be done. Our team lead actually was right out of his, college. Super smart guy. So it can be done. I think a lot of times coming in and taking a job at like a help desk or a data center or something like that and learning kind of how IT functions is a better base than coming straight in as a SOC analyst, never working in IT before. So no, like
Okay.
there's some of those people that are just they're great at it, but for a good base, from what I've seen, taking having a job in IT before coming into security is super beneficial.
Okay. I like that. I like that what I'm hearing you say, and keep me honest here, is that, don't be afraid of the scenic route.
Right.
Don't be afraid to take something else, something adjacent to security initially. Get into the IT world, start making some money, start learning, and then you can make some friends with the folks on the security team, start to pivot into that space. But don't be afraid if you don't get the first gig you go for.
Yeah.
Don't give up, don't get discouraged.
Exactly. That's kind of how. So I came out of the military, and my first job in the civilian world was at a data center uh, on the operations team. So we monitored the distributed systems, and I got to talk with people from like the Linux administrators, Windows administrators, and we dealt with the backup team a lot. So I got to develop a lot of points of contact, and then my manager also, I told her, I was interested in security. And she actually hooked me up with the director of the security team that I worked there. And she pointed me to two members to shadow. And I think job shadowing, especially if you're in a company already, job shadowing is one of the best things you could do that a lot of people don't take, you know, um, they don't use that often. Um, so because once you job shadow, that at least get your name to those people. So then if you apply in the future, they're aware of who you are. They met you. They've kind of talked with you. So I shadowed our network security team for a day, and I shadowed our desktop security team for a day. Um, and yeah, that's kind of the route I came in. And I think especially with the job market today, with so many people, having cybersecurity degrees or people trying to move from IT to security, networking is your going to be your biggest skill, even if you're an introvert like I am. Um, that's something that you have to develop. And there's a lot of communities that you can join. So there's the ISSA, there's InfraGard, a lot of most of them. I don't think that any of them cost anything, and they have meetings everywhere. You can join those, go to the meetings, start talking with people, and get your name out there, and kind of get advice, from them, because they're going to know what's more needed in the area that you're at. And then
Yeah. And what's that?
have a personal lab that you're kicking around something. It can be as
Okay.
small as a virtual machine on a workstation that you're learning how to administer, Linux or Windows, or you're testing something. I think everybody should have a little lab that they can play around with.
Very cool. Well, Stephen, listen, this has been such fun. I'm so grateful for the chance to sit down with you and have this conversation. I mean, we chat like this all the time, but it's really fun to be able to record it for posterity's sake and share it with others. Stephen's still one of my go-to calls when I get stuck. Particularly with code, because as Stephen knows, I'm not a great software development engineer. So I need help a lot. But Steven's still one of the guys I go to all the time. So this has been a lot of fun for me. Thank you so much for coming on the show. Folks, this has been SOC Unlocked, Tales from the Cybersecurity Frontline. I'm your host, Mick Leach, reminding all you cyber defenders out there to keep fighting the good fight. You're the tip of the spear, so stay sharp. Thanks for tuning in. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and check out our other SOC Unlocked episodes. We'll see you all next time. Thank you.